So the first one is help your clients assess their cash position. So if you're going to do a cash analysis, you need to understand what their cash position is and what their absolute bare bones cash requirements are. So how much runway do they have before they run out of cash? What cash will it take to meet their minimum needs? And then we'll start to look at some ways to get really creative about getting cash, legally, of course. So some of the options that I would offer to you include ways of adjusting their, bringing in additional cash faster. So we'll go through some examples of that in a little while, but I wanted to touch on that now. Leveraging their cash, leveraging their, let's start that over again. Looking at the stimulus package, of course, is one that I know most of your clients have already explored. So number 4 is leveraging their assets. So I like to start with an inventory of assets, and I think people underestimate the assets that they've got. We typically think about assets as space or equipment or materials, but I'd like to broaden that and think about assets as people and skills. And the first way to look at your assets and leverage them is to challenge everything that they are doing, asking what adds value now, what does not add value now, is it critical foundation work for the future? And if it's not, then can you eliminate it? If you can assess with them what no longer adds value, you can stop it. And stopping that would be a huge benefit because then they can reallocate those assets somewhere else. So I'd like to break down the assets into a couple of different categories and look at each one individually. So I'd like to start with looking at the people and skills. You know, we all know that labor is often the biggest expense of any company. So some ways to reduce the cost of labor is going to a shorter work week, a 4-day work week, a 3-day work week, something like that will reduce the cash outlay if you're paying people on that basis. You can, your clients can change the hours so that it matches their customer needs. You can offer, your clients can offer part-time work. They can offer unpaid leave, a sabbatical. I just read in yesterday's or Sunday's paper that Cone Health is reducing salaries for their executive team. Terry Aiken said that he's reducing his salary by 33%. Some of the other executive team members are reducing theirs by 10%. That's a way to keep some cash in. You can certainly pause retirement option contributions. The idea here is that you want to challenge your clients to get creative. Some other things that you can do around people and skills is you can have your clients look at what companies are begging for the skills that your team has during this unique time. And if companies need the skills that your clients have, can they share or lend their people to the suppliers, the customers, even some competitors if they're in a different region? Or could they lend their people to another company to produce for them? So an example, it's a simple example, but it could be, you know, restaurants today are doing a lot of takeout service, those that are open and offering that. Could a restaurant that now operates, you know, just dinners, could they go to a 24/7 service and put other restaurants' employees on staff to produce for them, to cook for them, to package the takeout for them? You know, obviously there'd have to be enough need on those second and third shifts to be able to make it worthwhile. But could you put your client's staff on a shift at another company that could use it because they're running full out? Can your clients redistribute the work and reallocate their resources to sell? I've got a client right now who is slow on production, and they're reallocating some of their production people who have the skills to get out there and sell. And that's working surprisingly well for them. They're getting some meetings and they're starting to get some traction on some new business there. Can they take a look at reallocating their resources by project and reduce staff where there aren't any particular projects going on right now? Can they reallocate their people based on which skills are harder to find? So you keep your folks that have hard skills to replace, but you furlough or lay off those that are easier to find and easier to train. So those are some examples around people and skills. Let's take a look at equipment and materials. So if a company that you work with is producing now and needs more capacity, one of the things that we used to do at Procter & Gamble is we would take our manufacturing folks, if we had excess capacity, and we would send them to our suppliers, and they would work at the supplier manufacturing facility, making the products for us. If one of your clients is slow and they have the excess capacity, can they bring in another company to use and produce on their equipment? Can they lease out their equipment? Can they think about who could produce more if they could have access to your client's equipment? It's good for the equipment, it keeps it running, and it's good for both businesses because they get some production and some revenue out of it. Other ideas might be, can they sell any equipment that they're no longer using or haven't used in years? They can look at their material supply and maybe sell off some inventory. I've got a client who's selling off inventory right now, and I have another client who has talked to their supplier, and the supplier is willing to buy back the raw materials that they've shipped to them. It's at a reduced cost, but they've decided that it's worth it. Can you help your clients slow their payments to their vendors, renegotiate their payment terms? Can they renegotiate the delivery rates or the cost of delivery? Can they renegotiate lease payments and maybe get an extension on it? Can they sell or donate their inventory? I read an article not long ago about college labs that are obviously out of session right now. The students aren't using the labs. So they either gave or sold their face masks to the hospitals. And those were in obviously great demand, so they were very valuable. Can your clients stop ordering inventory or repurpose their inventory? You've probably seen many examples already of companies that are reusing or repurposing their fabrics for masks. Or if you've read about Fainting Goat, which is the distillery in downtown Greensboro, they're repurposing their alcohol for hand sanitizer that they're giving away for free. Could your clients go just in time and rethink their supply chain and materials delivery? You know, today, just in time is much easier to imagine than it would have been, 20, 30 years ago. We can also look at assets such as space. So could you lend your space to a company and get paid for it? One of the examples that you've probably seen is hotels that are quite empty right now, if not closed, could either be, right now in Greensboro, they are housing homeless people. They are also potentially a place where you could become a temporary hospital. You've got individual rooms. It may not be the best option, but it's a potential. If restaurants have kitchens, could they turn those into a volunteer kitchen for preparing food for emergency and healthcare workers? Could your clients reduce their floor space and save inventory and operating costs? So those are a variety of different ideas and possibilities.